The unknown unknowns. How's everybody doing? Welcome. It's a late Tuesday night. I'm recording so I can stay on my weekly schedule. I was supposed to do this Sunday. Some things fell through, though I wasn't able to. I was going to have a guest with me. Mr. Sam Murphy was going to join me again. But like I said, some things fell through. So that didn't happen. So I'm doing this tonight. So it's not going to be a terribly long one, but it's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully, I have two cats that are really trying to mess with the camera a lot by playing with each other and deciding that they want to be friends with the camera. So if, again, shaky camera, shaky cam equals kitty cat playing with cam. I'm not going to really waste any time. I have a show this Saturday, February 22nd, the Green Room Bar in Tracy City, Tennessee. Really looking forward to it. Been booked on it for a while. Really looking forward to it. I hope that it's a good show. I've never been on it. So it's a new city. I get to put a new tack in my map of all the different places that I've performed, so really looking forward to that. And I don't have my calendar on me, so I can't give you any other update. That's about it. Right now, Woolly Bear is moving the camera because he does not like me, and he wants to make life difficult. But he's a furry boy, and now Mia's trying to get his attention, and it's not working. So now they're fighting. If you just heard that big loud thump, that was them fighting. So, kitty cat's over with. If I learned a little bit of something about podcasting and about editing and stuff like that. Whenever I say I edit these videos, I really try not to take any content out. I have not yet. I don't plan on doing so. I don't plan on removing any content. But I did, because I have a little, whenever I'm getting the camera cranked up and everything else, there's a little segment in the beginning that I cut out, of course. And then, several different audio sources are making the audio better and better. And I actually had feedback from a listener. I don't know if they just listen or if they just watch and listen. I'm not 100% sure. But they said the audio is way better, and they really enjoyed the last podcast, and that gives me hope that I'm doing something correctly, and like the unknown unknowns. I think the whole title of the podcast is the theme of the podcast, because I still don't even know what the podcast is about. I don't really have a theme. It's kind of random. It's kind of what I think of. Last week, like I said, I had the one where one of the listeners reached out and gave me a subject, and I really had pondered on it and really thought about it, and I had positive feedback, and I appreciated it. It was awesome. But that person did reach out to me, said they enjoyed it, and they said that, your audio way better, so I feel like I'm doing something good. And even though they said audio way better, if you listen to, I think it was like the last 2.5 minutes of the last podcast, whenever I was doing my editing and matching my different audio sources to the video, one of them got about a half a second or a second off. And so like the last 2 minutes of the podcast, there's an echo, and I just chalked it up as lesson learned. I didn't go back and fix it. I left it as a moment in time because it was something that I hadn't encountered before. So I let somebody listen to it, and they told me that that's what they think it was. So more than likely that's what it was. So I'll try and make sure that that doesn't happen again. But again, learning experience. And so this week, it's been a crazy week. It's been real busy. Life, I feel, this week has been severely out of balance, and that's kind of what I'm gonna talk about, is that balance of life and work and entertainment and uh, you know, paying bills and doing the stuff that you want to do, and then doing the stuff that you have to do. It's it's a struggle sometimes, So this past, I would say, past 2 weeks really has been very unbalanced as far as uh, life has been kind of taking a back seat to work. Work has been super, super heavy and quite irritating, quite annoying. But that's how I pay my bills, and so I gotta go and I gotta do what I gotta do. And while at work, every now and again, we'll get on different subjects and we'll start talking. And one of the things, like I work with several young people, or several younger people. I don't want to just say younger people. If you say young, it kind of gives the connotation of ignorance, and they're not ignorant, they're very smart people, but they're younger than I am. And so whenever you have different age groups get together, it's quite a unique experience because uh, you can see that imbalance between what different generations find important, what different generations find interesting, and the experiences that different generations have had. And so one thing we were talking about is we were talking about the movie The Matrix. And, one of my coworkers was like, I didn't really like it. Myself, I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. I think it was very revolutionary for its time. If you watch it now with CGI that they have now, the CGI done during The Matrix seems a little, off, I guess you could say, to where it doesn't look as realistic, but I still think the concept behind the movie is excellent. And I'm not gonna, spoiler alert, all the people are batteries for the machines. They take this one main character, Neo, and Neo means the one because he's the one, and they take him and they give him an option of returning to the reality he knows, or and this is why I decided to talk about this. Or he takes the red pill and he goes into the unknown, and Morpheus, which is Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus, says, take the red pill and you see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. And so my coworker, she asked me, she was like, well, what's the rabbit hole reference? And I was like, well, it's an Alice in Wonderland reference, and I said, but have you ever looked in a rabbit hole? And she's like, no. And I was like, well, I said, the reason behind the statement is rabbit holes don't look deep at all. Okay? If you look into a rabbit rabbit holes look like they're about, I don't know, I guess about 8 inches deep. But they look that way because a rabbit will sit there perched on like a little ledge and just kind of peek out and like see if there's anything there that's going to kill it. And then it'll like escape its home, but it'll just kind of sit there for a little while and listen and observe. And that's its survival tools, this little shelf inside of its hole. But behind that little shelf, like that hole can go on, for a while. And a lot of times a rabbit will have like another escape, because it's all about survival. And so like that depth into that rabbit hole is an unknown, and so this is where this all came about for the podcast, because I was like, oh man, this just fits, and I can talk about the Matrix and stuff like that for hours. And so we start talking, and this is where, like, I think it's fascinating that, because she had never seen the movie. It was like, well, have you ever seen it? She was like, no, it just doesn't seem like something I'd be really into. And it was like, you have to watch it because it's great. And I think you would be into it. And then I started to explain, that there was, this character Neo, and he meets this character Morpheus. And I said, there's a big conspiracy behind the movie because Morpheus is the Greek god of sleep. And so the like conspiracy theory is the whole time Neo is asleep, and she was like, I hate whenever movies, have that kind of projection. And I was like, well, I said, they bring him out of this cryo state where he's a battery for robots. And I said, he finds himself on board of the Nebuchadnezzar. And she was like, wait, what was that? And I was like, Nebuchadnezzar. I said, that's the name of the ship that they're on. And she goes, Nebuchadnezzar. She goes, that was a character in the Bible. And I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah. She goes, it was like a king or something in the Bible. And he ends up getting like mercury poisoning or lead poisoning, and like goes crazy for a while. Like he goes crazy for a while. And then in the latter years of his life, he regains his sanity out of nowhere. And so, like, this opened up a whole nother channel on the Matrix for me. And I haven't watched it again, but guess what? It's coming. It's coming soon. Because now I have this little basis of knowledge. And so if you watch the movie leads up to, like, basically the entire time on the Nebuchadnezzar, it's chaos. Like, so like it has, they have this moment of hope where they find Neo and they bring him out of this cryo state. Excuse me. They bring him out of this cryo state. And so they have this little moment of like peace and hope. But then things just start getting crazy. There's mutiny and all these different things, and these outside bugs and all that, start to attack the ship, and there's all this craziness. And then, Neo discovers that he can control the Matrix because there is no spoon. What you have to remember is there is no spoon. And so Neo realizes that he can control the Matrix, that it's not real. It's all in his head. It's all a program, and programs can be altered and infected and stuff like that. And he figures out that he can become the virus. Like, so inside the Matrix, there's these like men in black, and they're kind of like the virus, trying to stop the people that are having clarity about this false reality that everybody's in. But Neo discovers that he can become the virus, and ultimately creates peace. Like he there's a moment in the movie where he comes to this peaceful state, and whenever I now that I have this newfound knowledge, I gotta go back and watch the movie because there's gonna be nuances now that I didn't pick up on before that I'm gonna hopefully discover, because that's what I do. I like to really dissect dialogue and stuff like that. And like I told my coworker, I said, whenever he takes that red pill, I said there's a mirror there, and the mirror, he sticks his finger in it, it turns to liquid, and that liquid is like a metal-based liquid, because it's like silver, and it makes sense with the whole lead poisoning and metal poisoning, because it's like silver and it starts to consume him, and it wraps up his body, and the last thing it does is like it consumes his mouth, and it turns his mouth into like this dark hole, and his mouth, his soul, him, everything represents the rabbit hole. Like he's the rabbit hole because he had to really turn within and do a lot of self-discovery and figure out exactly who he was, because prior to that moment of clarity of like, wow, I can manipulate the Matrix, prior to that clarity, he was just really a surface character. He was boring. He had false life inside of the Matrix. He had a false life. So he wasn't living the life he was supposed to be living. And then there's still conspiracy theories that even on Nebuchadnezzar, he was still an avatar. Like he was still a character that was being built by some kind of outside force. And, so I showed this movie to my little boy, and he had never seen it, and so I showed it to him, and he turns to me, he goes, "This is one of the best movies I've ever seen." He's like, "Wow, when did this come out?" And I told him, and he was like, "Wow, I can't believe they made a movie, about this and then." And he goes, "Well, what is the Matrix? How good is the Matrix 2, or what's the Matrix 2 like?" And that's when I had to inform him, "I have no idea, son." And he's like, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I've seen the Matrix 1. There is no reason for me to watch 2 through whatever they're on now, 6, 7, 8, I don't even know. But there's no reason. I'll never see them. I haven't seen them. I haven't seen even snippets of it. All I've ever seen is the previews that they've showed on TV. And every time I saw a preview on TV for a Matrix 2 through whatever they're on, all I said was, it's not going to be as good as the first. It's just going to ruin, that first one." And I've had people try to convince me, "Oh, you're going to want to watch 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. Oh, but I watched 1, but 2, through whatever, because it really, starts to explain the story and everything else and all." And I know the story. I watched the first one. I really think that whenever they made the first one, I don't think there was really any intention in, making a second one. Just because the first one, I like a movie that has open interpretation. I like a movie that has some kind of mystery and things that you have to figure out and little nuances. And, like that Nebuchadnezzar thing, I would have never known that. Because, I'm not one of these people that's going to sit there and research every name of every character and every place and everything in a movie. Some stuff I will, like the show Vikings. Like I went and I looked up and to see if Ragnar Lothbrok was a real character, and he was. And so I found that interesting. But just Braveheart, looked up William Wallace. He was a real character. Eric Bruce, real character. I looked up those things. Just so you know, Eric Bruce and William Wallace in real life never really knew each other. They existed at the same time, never even met, never knew each other. So, spoiler alert on Braveheart, they did movie magic for it, okay? So, going back to, I think what led me to this thought pattern on the Matrix and, Neo really discovering his purpose and who he was. I think everybody's really on that journey. I don't know if you ever really know who you are. I don't think you ever really know what your purpose is. At least I don't. The way I look at it is, I'm gonna keep trying new things. I'm going to keep trying to perfect things that I already know, and build a career. And if that career has several careers inside of it, I don't really see how that's a negative. Like my coworkers, they say I have some of the coolest hobbies, and they're like, "Man, your hobbies could be a career." Because I'm an artist. I like to paint, I like to sculpt, but that's considered, a hobby. I don't do it full time. I made a living for 10 years on tattooing, but I don't tattoo full time anymore. It's still a part-time thing. I do podcasts, I do comedy, I do photography, so here lately I've been getting creative with internet videos and things of that nature, because I had somebody come, one of my friends came and showed me how to do some editing and stuff and manipulate sound and things of that nature. And so I'm exploring that aspect because I'm finding something else that I'm interested in, something else that I want to try. And so, like, my coworkers, they're like, man, your hobbies could be careers. And I've already figured out that with the tattooing, I think I love it too much. And so I don't know if that could be a career. I really want to be a career comic or, some kind of performer. Write. I really love writing, so I want that creativity. I really just want to make a living on my creativity, no matter really how I do it. And so I think I'm coming into like where things have been crazy, and I think they're still in that crazy state, so now I'm Nebuchadnezzar. Like, that's where I'm looking at it now, is I'm Nebuchadnezzar, and so growing up, yeah, everybody has different things that they go through and stuff like that and all, but overall, I think at times I've had moments of peace, then followed by moments of craziness, followed by moments of peace, and maybe this story in the Bible, that's what it's about, is that's how life is, in the character was just, someone that seemingly had everything and then goes crazy, kind of loses it all, and then one fair swoop has this moment of peace again, and so maybe it's like that Chinese proverb of, a man walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the daytime, and 3 legs at night, and it's a whole metaphor for aging, so you're an infant, a man, and then an old man. And so maybe that's what Nebuchadnezzar is. It's a journey of, peace, craziness, and then happiness. And that crazy, you got to go through that crazy to really know what the happy is. And so, like, we don't know what good is until we've had bad. We don't know what hot is unless you've been cold. I mean, Moo wants her camera time because she's a little princess. The little princess. Look, you say hello? She's a princess. She's going to bite my ear. But so, man, I wish it wasn't so late in the podcast, because I would have. I'm gonna present this question to other people. So my coworker that had never seen The Matrix, and so I every now and again we'll sit there. No, you don't bite cable. You don't bite cables. You bite cables, you got to get off camera. So that's a warning for everybody that I have as a guest. You bite cables, you got to get off the camera. Now she's just looking at me like, I can't believe you just kicked me off the camera. What? So I wish it wasn't so late in the podcast, but I'm going to present this question to other people just to get their reaction. So my coworker that had never seen The Matrix, so I present her with this scenario. I said, in the end, you get world peace, okay? I said, in the end, you get world peace. And she's like, okay. And I said, but in order to get world peace, I said, you have to beat one baby seal to death with another baby seal. Okay, so you're just hitting these 2 baby seals together until one dies. But for the greater good, you get world peace after. And I asked her if she would do it. She said, no, there's no way I can do that to 2 baby seals. And she says, what about you? And I said, hell yeah, man. For world peace, I was like, hell yeah. I said I would take those 2 baby seals and I would beat them together until one was dead. And I said, then whoever was with me, I would turn to them and say, I just gave us world peace. Okay? But the only way we know what world peace is if anarchy exists. And I told her, I said, so as soon as I was done beating the one baby seal, the other baby seal, I said, I would turn to whoever I was with and say, we now have world peace. And their response would be, because this horrific scene just went on. You got to think about the scope of the scene. This horrific scene just went on, okay? And so they would look and go, how do you know? And I'd be like, because I'm about to create anarchy. And I would prison shank that other seal to create anarchy. Because the only way we know what peace is if we have things like violence. You know, you have to have violence to have peace. You have to have bad to have good. You have to have dark to have light. And so I'm going to present that scenario to other people, and, you know, don't think that I'm all for an advocate for abusing animals. It's just a silly scenario, you know, and it's just kind of takes people, you know, kind of shocks people a little bit whenever they hear it. But it's just such a far out there scenario. It's just funny to me. And so she's going to come back and she's going to try and get on camera without chewing wires. We'll see how this goes. She's a bad princess. And so I know it's getting towards, I'm about at that 30-minute mark. And that's what I kind of planned on doing tonight. Ow! Gosh! She just bit the tar out of my ear. I told you she was gonna bite. Gosh, don't bite that one. Man, that hurt. She doubles as a piercer. Gosh, dog. So whenever I'm not paying attention to her, she will bite. And so that's why I got bitten. Because she's not getting enough attention. Because like I said, she's the princess of the house. So I'm about at that 30-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off right there. I got a couple other scenarios where I present, you know, some of the things that I've experienced and all to different generations and get their reactions. And so I'm going to kind of talk about some of those things sometimes. They may be peppered in. I don't know if it's going to be a whole podcast centered around it. My ear really burns now. She bit the tar out of my ear. And she's going to keep making noise and biting stuff because that's what she does. Hey, stop. Jeez. Needy animals. That's what we have in this house. Needy animals. They need to see everything. So, if you've listened to this point, you've listened to me babble for about the past 2 minutes. Because of different outside forces, you know, trying to ruin the last 2 minutes. But if you've listened to this point, I really do appreciate it. You know, everybody listening. I have a new tattoo reveal video coming out. That'll be seen on Boudreaux Comedy, Boodro Comedy on all social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. That's what my social media is. Boodro Comedy on all social media. TikTok, you know, that's where I'm gonna publish it first. Is TikTok, but like I say, I did a pretty large tattoo this past weekend, so I'm gonna have another reveal for it. This will drop tomorrow morning, you know, about 9 a.m. After it drops, please, any feedback, you know, hit me up on the YouTube page, hit me up on my Instagram, Facebook, any of those social medias. I check them constantly. You know, I definitely do accept feedback. You want to hit me up on email, boodro comedy@gmail.com. You know, definitely hit me up on there. Anything you can think of that I should talk about, I'm open to any subject matter. I'm not guaranteed I'm going to definitely talk about it, but I'll at least review the email, and like I say, jeez, gosh, dog, you are spoiled. And so I definitely do like getting the feedback and knowing that people are listening. It makes me feel good about doing the podcast, even though it's kind of disorganized right now. And like I say, I think I'm on episode 6 or 7, and I still have no idea what the theme of the podcast is or exactly what it's going to be about. And so that's it for me. If you're in the Tracy City area, the Green Room, Tracy City, February 22nd. Uh, I'll be performing there. Show starts at 7 or 7:30. So hope to see you out there. I think it's going to be a great show. And then I'll have some other shows. I don't have my calendar on me, so that's the only one that really stuck out. She just bit the back of my head, but it was nowhere near as bad as my ear. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off before I get mutilated by the princess. Have a good one.